In the meantime, big hand for Eric, please. Hello again, just a few more from me. Someone would say this poem is just me linking some one-line jokes together. I prefer to think of it having the meaning and the aspiration to not give up. It's called The Comedian Who Used to Die Every Night. He'd give it his best shot every night, each show the same, try as he might, punters booing amid the occasional chuckle. Many a night he thought he'd buckle. I went to buy some camouflage pants, but I couldn't find any, he'd say. One wag shouted, don't tell us any more, pal, please go away. But he had the resilience to die for, a skin as thick as a knapsack. Always borrow money from a pessimist, they'll never expect it back. Don't you hate it when somebody answers their own questions? I do. At this point, more of the punters began to hiss and boo. I find those whiteboards they have in schools remarkable. He was getting a very clear feeling this crowd were unworkable. When my wife found out I replaced our bed with a trampoline, she hit the ceiling. Not a laugh was heard. So he told them he thought they were all very unfeeling. Finally, he said, I was addicted to the hokey-cokey, but then I turned myself around. This hit the mark, drew one or two hearty laughs, and a titter spread around. I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down. This had the audience beaming. It was like he'd won the Triple Crown. I didn't think orthopaedic shoes would help, but I stand corrected. The whoops of delight he heard were most unexpected. 2 Wi-Fi engineers got married. The wedding was good, but the reception was amazing. He was on a roll now. He had both guns blazing. The man who invented knock-knock jokes should get a Nobel Prize. Clearly the rumours were unfounded of this comedian's demise. The feeling he got when they all rose as one was glorious. He finished on a high and sent them home uproarious. The problem with kleptomaniacs is they always take things literally. He could see their happy faces and their sound was like a timpani. Thank you. I know some people, maybe you do, who have turned up at a fancy dress party, dressed in fancy dress, and finding it's not a fancy dress party after all. Well, this poem is the flip side of that. It's turning up to a fancy dress party, not in fancy dress. Surprisingly, it's called a fancy dress party. I went to a party last night, but I wasn't told it was fancy dress. When the host answered the door, she stared at me and said, "Oh, bless." There I was in jeans and a shirt, when in the hall I could clearly see Clint Eastwood talking to Batman and someone dressed as a bee. I could hear shrieking loud voices in the kitchen, an argument was in flow. Apparently 2 feisty female guests had both come as Marilyn Monroe. Having a cigarette in the garden, I could just make out King Kong. He was giving a drag to Gary Glitter, and even I knew that was wrong. Snogging on a couch in the lounge with the Queen and Donald Trump. Just behind me was Eddie the Eagle, droning on and on and on about his ski jump. In the queue on the landing for the toilet was a pirate, Hiawatha and a tree. I have to say what came to mind was how on earth is it going to be? What I saw next for sure brought a woody crease to my brow. Who on earth would choose to come as the rear end of a pantomime cow? People asked me if I was Andrew Marr, Piers Morgan, or maybe a newsreader. I quickly smoothed my hair and told them I'd come as Rishi Sunak, our political leader. When the evening wound down and people started drifting away, you could still hear Bob Marley giving it in the kitchen, giving it reggae. The drink had all flowed, the dancing all done. A taxi arrived for the Pope and he took off home with a drunken nun. Now I enjoy a fancy dress party as much as the next chap, only please let me know in future so I can come as something less crap. Thank you. This is a poem about your body wearing out, but inside you're still full of vim and vigour. Probably you might relate to it. It's called Looking in the Mirror. Staring in the mirror, what do I see? An 18-year-old looking at me. That can't be right, I'm 71. Is it my younger self or maybe my son? How am I wrinkled when inside I'm so young? I see myself as a hero, although indeed unsung. Sadly, the skin on the outside has let me down. Inwardly, however, I still love to paint the town. I can no longer do the things I used to do. I could run for miles, now I prefer a brew. My stamina is not what it was by far. Now my activity is a day in the spa. My ears are bigger, my bladder is small. There are some days when I can just about crawl. If only my body hadn't failed me so badly, my mind would climb Everest twice quite gladly. Thank you. Three very short ones back to back. First one's called My Roses Aren't Red. The stone roses are dead and so are blue. I love Coldplay, why don't you? I have a potting shed where I like to brew. I love sausages, you love cordon bleu. Long walks I dread, and it's the same for you, because I wear wellies and you Jimmy shoe. You shouted, "'Nuff said," when in a rage I flew. But I got back. I read your diary to get back at you. Next one, puffed. I used a powder puff to put on my makeup. I had puffed wheat for breakfast. I listened to an article on Radio 4 about puffer fish. I had a puff pastry for lunch. I ate cheese puffs for an afternoon snack. I walked the dog in my puffer jacket. And now I'm puffed out. Finally, finally one of these three. I'm stuck inside this telescope. If I look left, I see beyond the sky. If I look right, I see a gigantic eye. This is my last one. I should have said thank you there, you didn't know it. A slightly suggestive poem. It's called Tickle Me. Tickle me, tickle me, tickle me, please. That's not a tickle, that's a squeeze. Good God, no, not the soles of my feet, you no good, wicked, flaming cheat. Tickle my neck, but don't be too forceful. I'll be angry and you'll be remorseful. Tickle my ribs and don't stop when I say. Only stop tickling when I start to pray. Tickle my palms, it makes me prickly. I can't stand it for long, so do it quickly. Tickle me here, the inside of my arm. That's so lovely, it works like a charm. That's enough of tickling now. If you don't, I'll swing for you, I vow. I'm not prepared to squirm anymore. Please help me up from the bedroom floor. Thank you.